Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. First, if you haven't already heard this, I'd like to introduce our team. I'm Robert Lutton, Vice President, Sandhill Consultants, and along with me is Jeff Giles, one of our Sandhill Senior Data Architects. Jeff, welcome to the team. And also, I'd like to invite on Kevin. Hey, Jeff. So Kevin Weisenberger is one of our Senior Erwin consultants. So Jeff and Kevin, thank you for joining us today. To our clients out there, if you're using SAP PowerDesigner and you're wondering what comes next, you're in the right place. Many organizations now and in the future will be facing the need to transition to a new solution. And while PowerDesigner offered solid capabilities for its time, in the world of data modeling, tools have evolved. And users are looking for tools that offer more flexibility, governance, and collaboration. In this session, we'll talk about the switch to Erwin Data Modeler and show you just how straightforward, supportive, and strategic the transition can be. So a little bit of background just on Sandhill, and Omar, if you can go to the next slide for us, because I don't seem to be able to control the slide. There we go. Thank you. So, and obviously just for our clients, this is, PowerDesigner is being retired. And so we're going to talk about what's your strategy to migrate off this particular solution. So just a bit of background on Sandhill Consultants. At Sandhill, we're proud to be at the forefront of data management innovation. We have got deep expertise in the world of data modeling, data cataloging, and data governance. What sets us apart is our focus on delivering end-to-end practical solutions that begin with modeling, but extend through the entire data lifecycle. We bring our knowledge of Erwin and Quest technologies, including data governance frameworks, business glossaries, and data dictionaries, all to enable organizations to build strong, scalable solutions built on a foundation of trusted data. Our mission is to help clients transform complexity into clarity, enabling better decisions, smooth migrations, and provide long-term data value. You can explore more or visit us anytime at our website, sandhillconsultants.com. So before we begin, let me walk you through what we'll be covering today. This session is designed to give you a clear understanding of what's happening in the PowerDesigner world and why we believe now was the time to consider a switch to Erwin Data Modeler and how such a tool, along with Sandhill support, can help you make that transition smoothly. We'll walk through the current state of PowerDesigner, show you a migration, what a migration looks like, including a live demo of the migration of the models into Erwin, show you some of the latest features in Erwin, and outline the steps if you're ready to explore this migration and this option further. And of course, we'll wrap up with some Q&A and any specific questions that you might have. So, Jeff, as I understand it, I know, but for our audience, you used to work at SAP. And in fact, you were their last technical resource at SAP. And believe it or not, that was over 10 years ago when you came to work with Sandhill. Yeah. We were chatting about, PowerDesigner. And whilst we mentioned at the beginning that it offered some really solid capabilities for its time, that was over a decade ago. And obviously, PowerDesigner, has stalled in new functionality development. And I was wondering, perhaps if you can explain the impact that's having on current users and how we believe now is a time for clients to move off PowerDesigner.
Sure, it's been around for a while, and the last release they had was 67. That's the current release, but they don't have any further. It's currently in a sustained release, and it will be until I believe it's 2027. That's when it officially stops being supported by SAP. We don't know what's going to happen to it beyond that date. But again, if you're depending on your data modeling tool, probably not a good idea to sort of sit and wait and see what's going to happen. You should probably have a strategy for finding an alternative. And in this case, we're going to talk about Erwin being that alternative.
And not to belabor Jeff's point, but we don't want to suggest waiting until PowerDesigner hits that end of life cycle for it to catch up with you. Instead, what we wanted to do is offer a easy model migration approach. A solution that offers Erwin Data Modeler that offers a broad platform support, a tool that will be coming out with AI embedded features shortly, and you'll never see those in the PowerDesigner sphere. And most importantly, a community that is over 75,000 modelers and growing that know Erwin and use the tool. So, Jeff, I wonder if maybe you could talk to us about the concept of the migration of the PowerDesigner to Erwin DM, because in the PowerDesigner world, there's a singular type of environment, and how that would switch over into the Erwin environment. And for that, we've actually created this little architectural diagram. So can you maybe talk to this one, Jeff?
Sure. When you're developing a PowerDesigner model, you have three different layers. You have a conceptual, a logical, and a physical model. Each one of those designer file that are basically linked together. So you can drive changes from conceptual to physical, from physical to conceptual. Erwin has a different architecture. They have a logical model and a physical model. And depending on how you architect it, that might be just one file. So from the conceptual and logical, which is really the business modeling concept, that all goes into the logical model. And then the physical model maps directly to the physical model. So during the migration process, and Kevin will show you this, you have a choice to migrate all three, to migrate just one model, which is a logical physical, or just a physical, but the architectures are slightly different.
Thanks, Jeff. And for our PowerDesigner users, we also thought it'd be interesting for us to go through and sort of explain some of the mappings from PowerDesigner to Erwin DM. Jeff, I think that it might be good for maybe you to maybe start off with some of these ones, and then we can obviously switch over. Because if you're a PowerDesigner user, you know you're familiar with these terms on the left-hand side, and how do they map to the right-hand side?
Yeah, I mean, some of the nomenclature or the names have changed, but the functionality remains more or less the same. Again, PowerDesigner has a model, Erwin has a model. They both call the diagrams the same name. They both have this concept of business rules and domains, and there are symbols. I think one of the major differences is PowerDesigner has what we call an annotation. Erwin just calls it text symbol. They call it a text block. We have an entity relationship notation. They have IE notation. There's a slight difference in how that notation is displayed on screen. And of course, IDEF1X is a direct map to IDEF1X, since that's a universal standard. Erwin has something called user-defined properties. PowerDesigner always called theirs extensions, so they would be called model extensions. But that's the nomenclature differences between the two products.
And there are a couple other definitions that we wanted to come up and explain. So I'll just have you continue. There's about 2 or 3 slides, Jeff. So just, for our PowerDesigner users who are looking to move over to the Erwin DM, we just want to make sure that you're familiar. I think most of these are pretty similar, but maybe you can talk about the inheritance link and the inheritance concept.
The major difference here is this thing called a data item. There's no relation of a data item to Erwin. They basically become entity attributes. And in Erwin, they would just call them attributes. A data item doesn't necessarily have to be contained within an entity. So it's sort of its own floating data item. There's no direct map there. They just basically become entity attributes. Identifiers are what we would call primary keys and those kinds of things. They have key groups in Erwin. Relationships are relationships. Power Designer heavily from UML, so they call their super an inheritance link. Erwin uses the standard nomenclature for data modeling called a subtype. Same thing here with inheritance. They use the UML term inheritance, but it essentially is a subtype category in data modeling language.
And just one last slide, Jeff, before we go to the demonstration with Kevin. So this is the last slide. This is basically, you know, on the physical side of PowerDesigner going over to Erwin.
Yeah, with PowerDesigner, a lot of the physical modeling stuff is essentially the same. Columns, keys, tables, references, indexes, views. The difference here is that PowerDesigner never had any specific table type called a fact table or a dimension table. You could add notations to say that something was a fact or a dimension or an outrigger, but when you migrate the models over, you know, it won't pick up fact, dimension, outrigger. You have to basically go ahead and label it as such, since PowerDesigner just looked at it as a regular table. Current DBMS would be the DBMS you're in. Erwin has something called your target DBMS. Check parameters and valid values are very similar to domains, right? And that a check parameter would say something like, these are the allowable values, or this is the data type max length. That's what a check parameter is, which would be equivalent to a valid value.
Well, we were just about wondering when Jeff's audio would go out. Jeff, you're back there. Your audio disappeared, and so did you. But you're magically back.
But I'm back. See, I'm here. We left off, I think, at table spaces and then storages, which would be called segments there in Erwin Data Modeler.
Good. So I think at this moment in time, we wanted to really kind of position to, you know, over to Kevin for the demonstration. So Kevin, I'm going to pass it over to you. You can control the PowerPoints yourself. Are you going to start off with a demonstration, or are you going to talk to some of the differences? Where'd you like to start?
So I'm going to jump into Erwin Data Modeler.
Perfect. So do you want to share your screen?
Sharing my screen.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay. So you should see my Erwin Data Modeler.
We are indeed.
So just wanted to show the latest release of the Erwin is release 15.0. And this came out just about a week ago, but just wanted to make that known there. As far as the PowerDesigner import capability in the tool itself, it really is a simple process, and the process works is it uses what they call the meta integration bridges in the tool itself. So let me just quickly go over to the Erwin ribbon. The ribbon right here, go to Tools, and so this import bridge it comes with Erwin when there is no configuration file, no need to add it during the install part of the tool itself. So as soon as this comes up, we'll go into, and I'll show you that the feature in the modeling tool, which allows users to import metadata from various data sources, such as databases, ETL tools and other modeling software into Erwin to help create a model. And that's what we'll show during the presentation, a PowerDesigner physical data model into Erwin. You could use the import for analysis and integration. So if this is the import bridge part of the tool. If I go to,
Sorry, Kevin, we're not seeing that screen actually. We can see your cursors moving about, but we can't see that dialogue, or at least I can't see that dialogue that's come up. Did you just share your screen, or did you share your application screen, or because I just wonder if we're only seeing that one.
I shared the app, but let me check one more thing here.
And that might be why, yeah, share entire screen, see if it can pop up, because if you just shared that up.
The whole screen so we can, okay. Okay, so you shouldn't see anything now, right?
This is true. I can see the three of us.
Okay.
So make sure you share, if there's an option, share the entire screen.
Okay.
There we go.
It is.
Now
my apologies.
Okay.
So so just getting back to where I was under the tools import. This is the bridge capability, and you'll see here that there are different types of import capabilities. There's a listing of about well over 100. So what I'm going to do is just go down to the PowerDesigner CDM, Common Data Model. So this version here, 6.x is supported, as well as a range from 7.5 to 16.x. And if we also have the LDM, which is the Logical Data Model, again, version 15x to 16x. And then the PowerDesigner PDM, 6.1, 7.5 to 16.x. So we're going to just focus on the physical data model, which is what we have here, the sample physical .pdm. And the way the bridge works, it does offer a bunch of different parameters and consistency checking during the import process. You can make some changes here in some of the parameters. Then once you have your source defined and you're ready for your destination, which will be an output, the output will be the Erwin data model. For this one, it's called Physical Data Model 10.x, data.erwin. As Jeff mentioned earlier, Erwin does support the ability to have a logical and physical model in one model, but you could always select a logical model by itself or a physical only model by itself. And then Erwin also offers a number of relational database, target database versions here. And for this one, what we're going to do is select SQL Server 2019. So I'm going to select Finish. And the way this works is there's a call to the Erwin API and the COM API. And Erwin starts parsing the PDM so that it brings in the objects itself. There's an audit log here that goes through each process, and it gets to a point where it starts building the data model in the background. And a nice thing about this is if there's any problems during the import process, you could save the log and go back and try to figure out or analyze where Erwin is choking during the parsing process. So everybody can see the this log, correct?
Yep.
Excellent. So while this is building, again, once it completes, we'll have a data model itself. It looks like it is going pretty slowly. So what I'm going to go do is switch over to my other Erwin instance, and this is the output of the data model that was created during the import process. So I basically maneuvered all the objects in a nice format so that it could be read by the audience. And you'll see here that we have, this is the logical representation of the data model, but you could always switch over to the physical side of the data model, which has your tables, columns, your relationships, and here you'll see that there's a view. There was a view in the PDM file that we imported into Erwin itself. To the left, there's the, this is like a hierarchy, the model explorer, where you could pick and choose certain objects to expand on. So let's take a look at domains here. These are the domains that come out of the box for Erwin, but one of the reusable objects that was in the PDM file was this postal code, which Erwin brought in. If we scroll down a little bit more, you'll see that there was a stored procedure that was also brought into the during the process itself. So if I go into properties, you'll see the information in this particular stored procedure, and and the views as well that I had mentioned. The view. There was a table that I wanted to take a look at here. Let me go into the columns. Open up the column properties, and you'll see that there was a number of constraints that were brought in, but I don't see that one for some particular reason. But within the Erwin itself, if you go into the table properties, you now can take the table itself and generate the create table statement from any table that you go down within the model itself. You also have your history of the information of the model. And another nice feature within the tool is the ability to, from the table editor, you can now go into the column editor by selecting this icon up here, which will open up the icons for or the columns within the specific table that you've chosen. Here it's employee, but you could just go down the list here into customer, etc. So I'm going to just close these down and then just go over some of the nice new features within the tool. One is this browsing tool in Erwin itself, where if I go into the show display here under panes, you could go into the properties pane. And if you take a look to the right here, there's this gives you a sort of an overview of the entire model at the highest level. But if you select the table here, you'll see that it gives you all the information about the specific table. You could actually go in and make some changes as needed. And you could do that for any of the columns. Once you select columns, you could also do the same thing for relationships here. So you'll get the information about relationships. In addition, you have this object count pane, which gives you a nice little graph of all the subject areas, tables, high level overview, columns in the model itself. And let me just go back to the properties. And if you select this object browser here, that will open up and give you again another report of all the tables, columns in this particular data model. But over to the far right, you could export this information over to as either text or HTML or PDF. So that concludes the demo part. Let me just go back. I'm going to stop sharing and go into the slide deck if I could find that one. Yep, that's it. So just wanted to include some of the newest features or target databases that are supported in Erwin, specifically on the cloud-based databases, Microsoft Azure SQL, Azure Synapse, Snowflake, Alloy DB, and Redshift. We have within the tool itself the integration with Git. With this feature, you could take a model that's saved in the repository, and you could push it to any of the source control repositories, GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, or Azure DevOps. So here you could take the script files that are generated from the Erwin data model, and you could either push that over to the Git repository and have the team collaborate on whether or not to implement it in a database similar to Works, but now it's controlled in a repository itself, the Git repository. Erwin also supports the business terms from a data governance tool like the Erwin DI suite. So those business terms and apply them to tables and columns in a data model. So that's information in the tool itself. And in release 15, which again came out a couple of days ago, there's now a data build tool, DBT, where you could generate a YAML file, which basically is something that I know for a fact that we have a couple of banks that wanted to see this in the tool itself. Then we have the support for open API again, new feature where you could reverse engineer and forward engineer the APIs in a JSON and YAML formats. And the Erwin tool, actually ER360, is the visualization tool that Erwin provides, a visualization tool where you could take the metadata that's in a MART model. You could harvest it to this tool for managing your metadata in a read-only mode. So some of the new features, the ER360 is the this MetaQL, which is a metadata querying capability and filtering for search and doing some work on the UDP support. These to drill in some of the diagrams similar to what we saw when we imported the PowerDesigner twin. So that should show what or appear in ER360 as what's in Erwin itself. some new indexing or automate indexing for performance capability. You also have visibility of both standard and custom metadata properties. UDPs, as an example, is now supported. User-defined properties; those are those reusable objects in the tool. And then ER360 users can now use Jira to log and manage metadata issues, to collaborate with the modeling team, even the data stewards as needed for updates for their models.
Thanks, Kevin. I just wanted to, sorry, is this, are you wrapped up on the Erwin demonstration side?
I am.
Great. What we wanted to do was we obviously we know PowerDesigner, we know Erwin, and we just wanted to kind of highlight, as organizations have gone through, from migrating from a PowerDesigner to Erwin, there are some kind of limitations, not a lot, but we thought we'd just open this up just so that way people knew what some of the key differences were. And I want to bring Jeff back in here. So Jeff, you and I have had some discussions about these differences, along the metadata, the version compatibility issues, the extensions that may have been done, and the model complexity. I wonder if you can take a couple of minutes and talk to each one of these.
Sure. There's no secret that PowerDesigner was a very open and customizable tool. You could do a lot of things with it. And there's certain metadata that you could capture in a PowerDesigner model that simply does not translate over to Erwin Data Modeler. And talked about the different versions that are supported for the most part, that goes from 16.7. It's the most current. When it goes back to 6, that's pretty extensible. But the other thing that I do want to make a note of, since I see that the Central Bank of Turkey asked a question about enterprise. PowerDesigner had a version called PowerDesigner Enterprise, which was called an EAM model. This went beyond data modeling. This went into business process modeling, UML modeling, enterprise architecture modeling. There is no direct correlation between that model and Erwin Data Modeler. However, the closest thing is something called Evolve. It does business process modeling, some UML modeling, and it will do data modeling at the logical level. I don't know that there's any direct translator for that. However, you could go out and check with a company called Meta Integration. They are generally considered what I would call the metadata Switzerland. That is, they do a lot of conversions from one tool to another tool. So if you're looking for the enterprise architect, I would recommend checking out Meta Integration. The Evolve product does a lot of what the EAM did, but there may be some other things out there. So that's my general recommendation for that particular question. Moving on to custom extensions. Yes, you can do extended attributes in PowerDesigner. They don't come over. So you'd have to basically
And Jeff, I wonder if Jeff will...
I'll be back. See, yeah. I like to just pop in and out from time to time.
There you go. That's magic. That is
internet
magic.
Connection is like that of a dial-up modem from 1980. All right.
Yeah, that's right.
So custom extensions. There's lots of different kinds of custom extensions beyond just attribute extensions that you could do in PowerDesigner. And unfortunately, there is no direct, instance. They're customized things. And then model complexity. Erwin does support this idea of a logical physical connection where you can flip a switch from a logical to physical. But in PowerDesigner, it's more built towards an enterprise data modeling capacity. So you could have one conceptual and generate 5 or 6 logicals. From that one logical, you could generate another 5 or 6 physicals. So the architecture complexity could be a lot greater in PowerDesigner than it is in Erwin. Erwin's import is really meant for a one model to one model concept. So the idea here is that you may have to rebuild some of that architecture in Erwin afterwards.
Thanks, Jeff. I'll just quickly go through just to kind of wrap up the import process. That there is a post-import checklist in Erwin DM where you can validate the metadata comes in. So there's data type validation options. There's relationship integrity where it validates the relationships. There's naming standards compliance using the standard naming convention within Erwin, and there's constraints and indexes that will help with that approach. So there's post validation contained in the tool set as well. I do want to kind of maybe Jeff have you staying on the wire hopefully a little bit longer. We have obviously had some FAQs from clients about going from SAP to Erwin Designer. So we put them here. Obviously, how our naming conventions handled in the migration. I wonder, Jeff, would that be a question you would answer, or would it be something for Kevin?
Sure, I'll take that one. Naming conventions from a PowerDesigner perspective were handled through just a regular CSV file. And then PowerDesigner would basically consult the CSV file to find out what the name and what we call code. Code was basically the technical name, and name was just the business name. And it would say that, if I typed in the word customer, it would automatically consult that list and then fill in the code section, let's say CUS or CSTMR or whatever it is you wanted. So as long as in the model, the name and the code are all filled in, it'll come over just fine. As Kevin demonstrated when he did the import and he did the flip from the physical to the logical, you saw that the names change. If you want to use the naming standards from PowerDesigner into Erwin, you more or less have to take that CSV file, bring it into Erwin, and then Erwin has a different file called I think it's a NSM file that you would simply modify to get the similar capabilities. However, in PowerDesigner, it's sort of automatic. It does it on the fly. I think in Erwin, Kevin, you can correct me, you have to tell it to go ahead and convert the names when you do it, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. Basically, you bring the...
yeah, it's not an automatic thing.
Yeah.
Yep, but don't fear losing any of your naming standards. You can bring them over and put them in.
And just question number 2, how does PowerDesigner logical models translate to Erwin DM? Kevin showed you that while you can bring in an LDM or PDM. Erwin DM, unlike PowerDesigner, combines the logical and physical views. And so there is some reconciliation of the metadata to make sure your standards are correct, your naming standards are correct here in the import.
There's also another thing that you have to be aware of here is that there's no concept of a conceptual data model in Erwin. Erwin does it just basically a logical model of different abstractions. So PowerDesigner actually had a separate model type called a conceptual. But when you do the conversion, your conceptual becomes a logical, as you saw in that little architecture diagram.
And obviously, the whole migration, we can speed up that migration process. So you'll get in touch with us on how to do that. So Jeff, what are some of the common pitfalls during the migration? We noted some there, but
yeah, I mean, most of it is pretty straightforward. The thing you just have to do is to make sure that what I generally do is I will keep a backup of your PowerDesigner models, and then do a comparison to make sure that everything has converted properly. But for the most part, there really aren't any. You do have to think about things like, custom extensions that you may have made, or if you do some custom data types, even those will sort of come across. But again, Kevin showed the validation report. Look at the validation report, see if it flagged anything that might be questionable, and then you can address it individually as it occurs.
And one of the things we also found out is that the SAP reports do not migrate across. You'd have to redevelop them in Erwin.
Right, a completely separate report writer, which there's no correlation in Erwin. But what I would do is with my SAP reports, you do have the ability to generate those things out as Word documents or PDFs or anything like that. So if you think that you might want to use the reports, just save them out as other file types, and then you could probably recreate them in Erwin later.
So we'll go to our last slide, which is obviously just a kind of summary. We know that PowerDesigner's future is ending, and every organization that's currently relying on it will eventually face a choice. Either do some patchwork workarounds and accept the increased risk, and that obviously is not acceptable to some, or take proactive steps towards a modern, supported, and scalable solution with Erwin DM. Jeff, you did mention Evolve. Evolve is a great complementary tool to Erwin DM. So on the enterprise architecture side, you would use that for your process modeling. But on the data modeling side, we would strongly recommend that you use Erwin DM, and together both can actually pretty much suffice to deliver to the enterprise what the enterprise needs. So the question we have for you is, what's your plan? We've shown you that you have the tools. There's a roadmap. The migration is a straightforward process, one, many, or all. And at Sandhill, we're helping organizations of all sizes make this transition with confidence, from the initial assessment to training, to governance, to full-scale migration. And so, what we'd like to do is we'd like to have a discussion, an open dialogue with you. We've got our email on the screen there, info@sandhillconsultants.com. And we'd love to schedule a no-pressure consultation to see, for the Central Bank of Turkey. Please email us. We'd be more than happy to set up a call to understand where you're at, what edition you're using, whether you're using the full enterprise edition or you're using the data modeling edition, and how we can actually get you to the end destination, which is obviously using a tool that has got a bright future. So you can contact us at info@sandhillconsultants.com. Our contact details are on our website at sandhillconsultants.com. We support our clients globally. We've got offices in UK, America, and Canada. And, again, it's no pressure schedule for, how we can make it better. So with that, I'm not sure. I know, Jeff, you answered that question there, but, we will just kind of come back and see if there's any other questions there. We appreciate the Central Bank of Turkey giving us some feedback on that. This has been a recorded session, so we will post it out onto our social media channels. You've got my contact details in there, and that should be 5882, not 6882. We don't want someone getting the wrong number on there, so that's 905-847-5882. I think someone once before said, "Hey, I'm getting a lot of calls for this Robert Lutton, but it looks like the phone number's wrong." So 905-847-5882 is the number you can contact me at, or email at robert.lutton@sandhillconsultants.com. My thanks to both Jeff for his PowerDesigner knowledge and experience and his expertise in data governance, and of course to Kevin, who has been able to show how you can bring in a Erwin data modeling tool, or a PowerDesigner model into an Erwin data modeling tool. So my thanks to that. With that, we'll end here, and we will certainly reach out to those that have asked us for information. And if you're reviewing this event post and it's a recording that's posted on the web, you can still reach us at info@sandhillconsult.com or my email address there, and the phone number 847-5882. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Omar, do you